Joe Biden loses in court again. 2 weeks ago, the U.S. Fifth Circuit stepped in and told the Obama administration, I'm sorry, I meant to say Joe Biden. Same thing, Joe Obama, Biden, that they could not enforce a vaccination mandate on employers with 100 employees or more, and OSHA was not regulated to be able to enforce such a mandate. That was a halt, a stay. And then several days later, they released a 22-page scathing reason for their decision, which basically now OSHA has stepped back and said, we are not going to enforce this mandate, because basically they can't. In fact, the Fifth Circuit stated emphatically, if this is so needed and so necessary, why did you wait 90 days to enact it? And where is the science that employers with 100 employees or more are subject to this mandate, but if you have 99 employees, you're not subject? It was too inconsistent, and they basically said it's nothing but pure politics. And that's it. OSHA has now said we will not enforce the vaccination mandate. But there's been another area that has been hard hit by these mandates and requirements, and that's those healthcare workers, those frontline workers that just a year ago, the Democrats and Joe Biden were referring to as heroes. Well, now apparently they're zeros if they will not get Love Potion number 9. And when Joe Biden, thrusting out his mandate that you will get the jab if you work for the government or if you work in the healthcare industry that receives payment from Medicare or Medicaid. And all across the country, hospitals and nursing homes and healthcare facilities have been telling their employees, you're going to have to get vaccinated. Now, in some places, they can file for exemption. I will tell you by complete disclosure that my wife is in the healthcare industry. She had to fill out paperwork for an exemption based on religious reasons. I, as her pastor, wrote a letter. It has all been accepted. But a federal judge in Louisiana yesterday issued a preliminary injunction against President Biden's COVID-19 vaccine mandate for healthcare workers. In fact, it reads, Judge Terry Doherty in the U.S. District Court, Western District of Louisiana, ruled in favor of a request from Republican Louisiana Attorney General Jeff Landry to block an emergency regulation issued November 4th by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services that require vaccines for nearly every full-time employee, part-time employee, volunteer, and contract working at a wide range of healthcare facilities receiving Medicaid and Medicare funding. Doherty argued in his ruling that the Biden administration does not have the constitutional authority to go around Congress by issuing such a mandate. I have been saying for months, mandates are not laws. Mandates are not laws. In many local municipalities around the country, when we were at the height of COVID madness, and every town had their own list of rules and mandates, and you will wear a mask here, and you will wear a mask there, and you will do this, and you will do that. There were many places where the law enforcement officers simply told the powers that be in City Hall, well, I don't know how you're going to actually enforce this, because we're not. I had a sheriff of a county in the state of Ohio tell me directly, I am sworn to uphold the law and to enforce the law. I do not enforce mandates. Mandates are not laws. And that is exactly what this judge in Louisiana is stepping in saying. And if you want this mandate, this law that employers have to have their workers vaccinated if they're receiving Medicare and Medicaid funding, then you better take it to Congress and make it a law. In fact, the judge wrote directly, if the executive branch is allowed to usurp the power of the legislative branch to make laws, 2 of the 3 powers conferred by our Constitution would be in the same hands. Bum, ba-dum, bum. If human nature and history teach anything, it is that civil liberties face risks when governments proclaim indefinite states of emergency. I don't know who this judge is, but I love this judge because he absolutely gets it. These governors, these would-be little tyrannical dictators that have just declared these never-ending states of emergency. Why? Because then that way they can usurp the legislative process and simply rule by decree. We don't have kings here. We're not supposed to. This is what happened in the 2020 election cycle. Governors just simply threw aside the laws regarding how elections are done, and in the name of a pandemic and keeping people safe, they just changed them. And Shazam, Batman, wouldn't you know, we got people questioning the results of said election. You think? Governors that... The governor in Michigan, Whitmer, she wasn't just that, back during the height of the pandemic, only essential businesses could be open. There were people literally outside in their own yards who city workers would roll up on them. If they were mowing their lawn, they would be fined for being out of their house. If they were tending a garden in their backyard, they would be fined for being out of their house, and they would have to stand there and watch city municipal workers tear up their garden. I mean, you had governors declaring that strip clubs could be open, but churches couldn't. Or your church can meet, but only 10 people in the building. I tell you, we never closed, we never shut down. And as soon as I saw the first photograph of a full plane, everybody sitting there in their little mask on top of each other, armpit to armpit, no social distancing, no every other seat. That's when I said to my church board, we will not close every other pew. We will not do every other seat. We are going to be wide open. We are going to stay open, and everything is open. Nurseries, childcare, children's churches, everything as normal. Heidi, hey, let's go. This judge went on to write, during a pandemic such as this one, it is even more important to safeguard the separation of powers set forth in our Constitution to avoid erosion of our liberties. Yes! Fauci, Biden, these governors think that just by a decree, they can just say it, and you will do as you're told.
One of the things that to me was most difficult to accept is that we put together a good plan for how we were going to try and dampen down the spread of infection early on, thinking that that was accepted by everybody. And then the next day, the president saying, free Michigan, free Virginia. I didn't quite understand what the purpose of that was, except to put this misplaced perception about people's individual right to make a decision that supersedes the societal safety.
Oh, aren't you so glad we have Anthony Fauci deciding what's best for us? He'll let us know what's best. Of course, today we found out Omicron is here in the U.S. Oh, wait a minute. Biden ended travel on Friday to South Africa. There can't be Omicron here. That scam, which is all about punishing South Africa for rejecting love potion number 9. Only 25% of the people there are vaccinated. And it isn't that they don't have access. In fact, it was the governments of South Africa basically telling Moderna and Pfizer, stop sending over your vaccine. We've got so much of it now we don't know what to do with, and we're having to get rid of some of it. The people just don't want it. It's funny, though, they have the lowest cases, they have the lowest outbreaks, the lowest infections, the lowest deaths anywhere on the planet, yet now all of a sudden a new killer variant was discovered there, which is so mild it's almost undetectable. Oh, and the person here in the U.S., in California, which is now tested positive for Omicron, had full vaccination and booster. This is about, on one hand, punishing the people of South Africa for not following the approved script and narrative, and it's also about just keeping up that fear and that hysteria that you must get Love Potion number 9, you must get the magic elixir, you must get the booster. And it is all about this new segregation, this new bigotry, shaming the unvaccinated. Joe Biden said his patience has run out, and you will get the vaccine because we've got to protect your fellow employees.
We must increase vaccinations among the unvaccinated with new vaccination requirements. This is not about freedom or personal choice. So tonight, I'm announcing that the Department of Labor is developing an emergency rule to require all employers with 100 or more employees that together employ over 80 million workers to ensure their workforces are fully vaccinated. The bottom line, we're going to protect vaccinated workers from unvaccinated coworkers.
And a federal judge in Louisiana said, not so fast, Joe. Not so fast. Now, the judge did go on to note, ultimately, this will be decided by a higher court. However, it is important to preserve the status quo in this case. The liberty interest of unvaccinated people requires nothing less. Boom. Either you have a right to your own body or you don't. This will ultimately be decided in the Supreme Court. Sadly, it's going to take some time to get there, which means in the meantime, people are needlessly losing their jobs. They are being persecuted, guilt, and shamed. And you've got maniac governors and mayors running amok with their draconian, tyrannical little laws, like in New York City. You basically can't do anything if you can't show proof of vaccination, which will soon be changed to proof of current vaccination. In other words, even if you've had both shots and the booster, you now have Fauci saying you're going to need a second booster. And you might not be able, even though right now in New York City, you can go in Madison Square Garden and restaurants and live kind of, quote, normally, because you've got proof of vaccination, either your little card or you could scan it on your phone. But when they decide you got to have the second booster and you've decided, you know what, I have been jabbed enough, you're not going to be able to go in those venues anymore. This is what totalitarian looks like. You know, the stuff that we used to suspect was going on behind the Iron Curtain.
And the key to NYC is an approach that makes clear the power of vaccination. It is the ultimate encouragement to get people vaccinated, to say there are so many amazing things in this city that you can participate in if you're vaccinated. We want people to enjoy the fullness of the city, but you got to be vaccinated to do it. We want people to enjoy the fullness of the city, but you got to be vaccinated to do it.
Your papers, please.
Now, today I'll be signing an executive order, and this will make very clear the Key to NYC initiative begins tomorrow, Tuesday, August 17th, and it's easy. All you have to do is show proof of vaccination. That could be a CDC paper card, that could be an Excelsior Pass, an NYC COVID Safe app, whatever works. All you got to do is show that proof and have ID as well. All you got to do is show that proof and have ID as well.
Your papers are not in order.
Your papers, they're not in order. You cannot come in here. You cannot go to work. In fact, because we have all of this now electronically, digitally linked together with the scan on your cell phone, you will not even be able to access your bank account, your driver's license, or your passport until this is made current. Pastor Marty, that's over the top even for you. Is it? Is it? Is that where all of this is heading? Some of you seriously need to wake up. Especially you woke left. You need to literally wake up and understand what's happening right now. So, Omicron is here. If you read the symptoms, it's a head cold. I know someone who posted on their Facebook page, apparently they have been diagnosed with COVID pneumonia. He said, I didn't even know that's a thing. I posted back to him, it's not, it's just called pneumonia. They're going to never let the fear-mongering end. They won't talk about monoclonal antibodies that you can take. They won't talk about ivermectin. They won't talk about building up your own natural immune system. Now, there are some people on the left beginning to talk about this. Jimmy Dore is getting beside himself that Dr. Fauci doesn't talk about the real changes in healthcare that could... You think? In fact, I've got a link below to a Jimmy Dore commentary, which is absolutely outstanding about, we've shut down 30% of our hospitals across this country in the past couple of years. Wait, I thought pandemic, accessibility, availability, yet insurance companies decided ICU beds when they're empty, they're just too expensive. Are you figuring out how all of this is connected and that certain individuals claiming to be scientific experts are nothing more than puppets and mouthpieces for Big Pharma? And why is the news all on board with this agenda and this narrative? It's about saving lives. No, it's about the fact that Big Pharma supports and finances the news in this country.
Good Morning America is brought to you by Pfizer.
CBS Health Watch sponsored by Pfizer.
Anderson Cooper 360. Brought to you by Pfizer.
ABC News Nightline. Brought to you by Pfizer.
Making a difference. Brought to you by Pfizer.
CNN Tonight. Brought to you by Pfizer. Early Start. Brought to you by Pfizer. Friday night on Aaron Burnett Out Front. Brought to you by Pfizer.
This Week with George Stephanopoulos is brought to you by Pfizer.
This weather report brought to you by Pfizer.
Today's countdown to the royal wedding is brought to you by Pfizer.
And now a CBS Sports Update brought to you by Pfizer.
Meet the Press Data Download brought to you by Pfizer.
This portion of CBS This Morning sponsored by Pfizer.
On how to find the hidden sugars in the American family diet. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Oh, Orange Man Donald Trump had to go. Mean tweets. And he was a tyrant. He was a tyrant. We were free under Donald Trump. Gas was cheap. We had no problem with supply chain issues. Joe Biden closes down our pipelines, but lets Russia have theirs. Does that have anything to do with Hunter Biden, his laptop, all the incriminating photos on there of him in his perverted sex life and drugs and Russian agents, the ones feeding him the drugs, that in order to try to keep it quiet, a little quid pro quo happened. The new president shuts down our pipeline, lets Russia keep theirs. Pastor Marty, yeah. Okay. Take a look around and answer an honest question. Are things better since Dementia Joe took over? And I think you all know the answer to that. Thank God there are some judges stepping up and saying these mandates, oh no, nay. You do not arbitrarily just have the right to tell people they will receive Love Potion number 9. It's going to go to the Supreme Court. We want to believe that they will do the right thing. Of course, all eyes are on the Supreme Court regarding Roe v. Wade right now. But this shall be interesting. But it is yet another defeat for Joe Biden in the courts.